Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to week number 11 of the WiggyWam Get Your Property Questions Answered. I can't believe that we've covered 11 weeks already. It seems like only 5 minutes ago when we started doing these webinar series, but I'm really glad that we've got some momentum here and we're able to get your questions answered in a way that seems to be a useful format for you guys, which I think you're all enjoying. So thank you for tuning in, for giving us your views and your time and attention, which I know is valuable in today's society, particularly in the age of distraction. So really pleased that you're here. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually in Delhi in India right now. I came out here probably about 10 days ago now, I suppose, with my good lady. And it's been a bit of a hectic week, I'll be honest with you, because unfortunately, for the last sort of, 4 days really, she's been in hospital with a few things, which has not been great. So we've had to, I've been sleeping in a little reclining armchair next to the bedside, and it's been a bit hectic in terms of traveling backwards and forwards and making sure she's okay. So thankfully, that's the good news is she's out of hospital now and back on the mend. So just got to get some rest, and I think we've also got to get some rest as well and catch up. So if I look a little bit haggard and a little bit the worse for wear, that's exactly what's been going on. Not quite the holiday we were originally intending, but still great to be with family and still great to see what Delhi has to offer. And in fact, I'm so impressed with the hospitals over here. I mean, I go back to many years ago when I used to hear stories about people coming to India and it leaving a lot to be desired. But I've got to tell you the incredible state of the hospitals over here right now. The main hospital in Delhi, it is just a world class. It is absolutely world class, I've got to say. The support that the doctors give you, the amount of staff that are there taking care of you, the fact that you can go in and within literally minutes they're working with you, they're helping you, they're getting you back on your feet, and this is without even arriving in an ambulance. They are absolutely on top of it, whereas I think in England you'd be waiting probably a couple of hours to get seen, which is just incredible. Obviously we do have emergency services and they're better and all the rest of it, but the point I'm trying to make is I am absolutely flabbergasted by the high standard of care that's being delivered in the hospitals here. And whilst there is a mixture of what we would call probably social care, as in everybody gets looked after, and there's also a private element, even the private element is just cheap as chips compared to what else I'm seeing in the rest of the world. So kudos to the Indians for doing such a great job and making healthcare so incredibly affordable and efficient. So I'm pleased that to report, she's back on the mend. Touch wood quickly, and everything will be good now. So, but unfortunately, we've got to extend our stay, or fortunately, we've got to extend our stay, whichever way you want to look at it, until she can get her strength back and fly back. So, get a chance to experience a bit more of Delhi. Everything I've seen so far, I've got to tell you that people are amazing. They're incredible. They're so warm. They're polite. They're friendly. They take good care of you. And I quite honestly think that my mama and papa should be in sales, or they ought to be in sales, because they are constantly getting me to eat more and more of this delicious food, which I'm finding quite enjoyable. I have to admit. I did actually lose a lot of weight earlier this year, for those of you who don't know, and that was after coming back from a trip to Mexico, believe it or not. And unfortunately, I contracted gastroenteritis somehow. I have no idea how, but it absolutely finished me, and I lost about, I think it was something in the order of like two stone in about 6 weeks. The weight just fell off me. And now I'm pleased to say I'm putting it back on. So I'm on this healthy eating regime that my that Mama and Papa have put me on, which is going really well, to be honest. So enjoying that. But it's taken me about a week or so to learn that there are 3 levels to when people offer you food in India and how you say no. So there's like 3 different levels that you have to approach. So, in England, for example, when somebody says, would you like some more? You go, oh, no, thanks, I'm fine. That's it. Like that's the end of the conversation, and nothing goes any further forward. But like in India, that's seen as like a polite decline, but they'll still feed you more food. They'll still put more food on your plate and all the rest of it. So, or they'll push you until you say give in and say, okay, just a little bit more. And then apparently there's a second level, which is where you have to cover your plate with your hands and kind of lean forward a little bit and say, nicha, yeah, like, no more, thank you. And that's obviously something that's taken me about a week or so to learn. And then the third level seems to be that, you have to collapse onto your plate in a food coma, because they'll still try and feed you more food, and they'll still probably try and feed you dessert then. So having a great time working at this sort of cultural difference. But yeah, what a place. Definitely recommend it. And talking to a lot of the locals here as well, and people that have lived here for a while, there's so much to explore here in India. And I really see India sort of exploding into, a world-leading power within a very short space of time. They've really started to get that momentum, and I'm really pleased. So, yeah, lots happening here. It'll be sad to get back to the cold and the misery of England, which seems to be pretty grey and miserable at the moment as we're coming into December. But yeah, walking around tonight in shorts and t-shirt at about, I think it was about 10 o'clock. We've just been to the hospital around the corner. Shorts and t-shirt, and it's absolutely delightful. So well recommend it. Moving on, guys, I just want to say we are putting the word out now as well. If you are somebody who's in business, or maybe you've got some kind of property journey that you'd like to share with people, maybe you've had I don't know, some interesting life experiences that you think you'd like to share with other people. We're actually putting the word out now to attract more people to be on one of our webinars in the future. We did an episode just before I came out to India, which I'm really looking forward to releasing that, because I think that's going to be stellar. And we're putting the word out for others who want to, I don't know, maybe feel like they've had a journey that they want to feel heard, that they've gone through that journey, or maybe they've got some life experience that they want to share with others that will sort of really help them in life or help them with business and that sort of thing. But one of the things we want to do differently is actually go into the character of the person. So it's not just about another Let's Talk Business podcast. Not really so much interested in that. I want to know about the people. So I want to do a little bit of digging, if you like, beneath the bonnet, find out a little bit more about the individual, and what their journey is, what their story is, because I think that's how people relate well to one another. So we're looking to do that. So if you've got anything along those lines, maybe you know somebody, maybe it's yourself, and you want to put yourself forward, please just send us an email, happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk, and we'd love to have you on board as one of our sort of guests in the not too distant future. So we've got that gearing up. We've got a few people that have agreed to come on already, which is really exciting. And I'm really excited to share their journeys with you as well in due course. So let's see what happens with that. I'll put it out there into the universe, let God take over, and see where we go from there. All right. So if you're interested in that, send us an email and we'll move on and get on with it. All right, then. So let's move on now. Question number 1. This evening comes in from Brent. Hi there, Brent. So Brent is asking me, he says, my buyer pulled out after 10 weeks, claiming it was due to the survey. They won't tell us what the survey showed up, and nor will the estate agent. Why, when a buyer pulls out of a sale, can they not sell the survey to the seller, maybe for half the fee, to help address the issues found? Why too does every buyer have to get a fresh survey done for the same property? Why isn't there a way for this to be done upfront by the estate agent so it's independent, then making it available to both the seller and the buyer? As a seller, I would be prepared to pay for the estate agent to do this rather than not knowing what is wrong with my property and keep losing buyers. Okay, there, Brent. Well, thanks for the questions. There's quite a few there actually mixed into this one particular topic of buyers pulling out in relation to a survey that they've had done. And it's always disappointing, especially when you can't find out what's actually happened. Why won't they tell you? And sometimes, let's look at it from a buyer psychology point of view. They've got excited about the house. They think they've found the house that they're really keen on. They've gone to the time and effort and trouble of making an offer, getting it accepted, instructing solicitors, and then they've gone down the road of instructing a surveyor to come and have a look. So they've incurred cost at this point when a surveyor comes to have a look. And sometimes it can feel almost like they've been cheated. I know this is not your intention, Brent. I'm just giving you a perspective from their side, that they can feel cheated, that they spent this money and the house isn't quite what they thought it was. And they some people can be left feeling a bit jaded, and they sort of, pull out, and then they take off their survey and take off with their survey, should I say. And, you're none the wiser as to actually what's happened. So that's just giving you a little bit of background, perhaps from the buyer side. But from your side, Brent, as the seller, you raised some really interesting points, and I want to address these because this is how I see a different way of buying and selling being done. It's what we call the new way of buying and selling, if you like. And that is all about having a condition survey done at up front, right at the very start when you look to put your property on the market. Because as the seller, sometimes the advice you will get as a seller is a little bit misleading, because you're told not to incur this cost because it will be the buyer's expense when they come along later down the line and they've made their offer, right? But as the seller, you could be put into a position where it's crisis last minute negotiations. And it sounds extreme when I'm using that terminology, but I'm being very serious, because I've dealt with it, many, many times as an estate agent, where something has been flagged up in the survey. And don't forget, in this case, you're 10 weeks further down the line, but in most cases it was sort of, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks down the line. Everybody's incurred expense, everybody's put time and effort into the deal. And then all of a sudden something flags up and says, actually, this property isn't quite what you thought it was. And it's not necessarily because the seller held anything back. They didn't know, but they've had a property expert come in who's a surveyor, who's looked at it all and gone, do you know what, actually, the property might have 5, 10, 15, 20, 50,000 pounds worth of work to be done on it. And the buyer goes, well, I wasn't prepared for that. So what do I do? Do I carry on, chasing my loss, or do I pull out of the deal and go and find something else? Because actually, now it's not what I thought it was. I'm less interested in the property. And all of this can be solved by you spending a little bit of money at the outset to actually get a condition survey done on your property before you list it for sale. And that's absolutely something that you can get done. And it's a shame that not more estate agents actually offer it, because I think it would be a much better way of selling properties, because people know what's going on right at the very start. So there's no arguments, because the condition survey dictates everything that's wrong with the property. And if there's stuff in there that are quick wins for you, you can go around and employ a builder, or you can do the jobs yourself, and you can fix those things up and get them, get the property looking shipshape and Bristol fashion, ready for selling. And I'll give you a classic example. As a surveyor, one of the most common elements on properties is misaligned guttering. Okay, so the guttering on the roof starts to come apart. Then you get water leaking down the face of a property, and then that leads to damp issues, or other things that are going wrong. And it's such a quick and easy fix, but people let it slide. Oh, it doesn't really matter, it'll be okay. And then over a couple of years, these problems start to manifest and become bigger. Now, these are the sorts of things that can be picked up and easily dealt with right at the very start. And if you can then invite your buyer to look at the condition survey and say, look, I'm presenting a clean bill of health here, or these are the items that have been picked up. As a consequence, we've priced the value of the property, and this is important. So as a consequence of the condition survey, we've priced the value of the works into the price of the property. So people aren't trying to beat you down, because that's the other thing that people get worried about, right? Is that they go to the market too transparent, and the property or the condition survey lists a couple of different elements of work to be done to the property, and then they think they're going to get beaten up by the buyer on the price they're willing to pay for the property. Okay, so it's this double-edged sword that people are going with. And my view is, well, just let's be upfront, let's deal with any of those issues right at the very start of the marketing journey. And then you haven't got this gun to your head scenario where you found a property that you want to move to. You've also incurred time, effort, and expense, and that can be up to £2,000 that you'll lose if the buyer pulls out, right? And you haven't got to go endure that stress. And it's incredible that the amount of stress that's on your shoulders when you've probably got things that have been boxed up in your house. You told your friends and family that you're moving. You've got everything lined up for to move at the 11th hour. And then all of a sudden your buyer pulls out because, they have this survey situation going on. So to answer your question, Brent, there's absolutely ways that you can, cut these problems off right at the very head of the property journey, and then have a more peaceful moving experience going through. But the problem is, it requires a little bit of an investment of cash up front, and that doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. We're talking probably, let's say 500 quid, less than 500 quid. You could have a survey done on your property, and undertake any of the items of work that are on there, and then you've got a clean bill of health for your house. So that's the way I'd approach it, Brent. Because it's going to cost you, as I say, if you lose your buyer, it could cost you up to £2,000 in legal bills and surveys that you've had done on another property, or mortgage broker fees and all that sort of thing. And it's one of the reasons that deals fall apart. It's and it's also one of the reasons why buyers are left so out of pocket in their journey. So That's exactly what I would do. Get a seller's condition survey done, or even a home buyer's report on your own property, even though you're the home seller rather than the home buyer. But have that report done, and then you've got a really solid grounding to work with. And you can even show that to the buyers that are coming round, or the viewers that are coming round who are expressing interest to buy. And then, it's complete transparency, isn't it? So hope that answers your question, Brent. As I say, this is something that we're actually looking at very seriously as well to avoid these problems, because it's a huge value add. I see it as an incredible no-brainer value add to anybody who's looking to sell their property. And this is where I think, if home information packs, as were originally intended to be brought to the market, were implemented in the right way, the condition survey would have had a lot of value. But unfortunately, it was such a, with respect to botched implementation of the old HIPs into the market, that I really think it lost all of its effectiveness and lost all of its teeth. Whereas actually, a WiggyWam sellers pack with a seller's condition survey, I think, is absolutely the way to go on this sort of thing. So hope that's helped you, Brent. Anything else you need, please reach out to me. If you want me to put you in touch with a couple of surveyors who can probably help you get this sorted, again, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you on that one as well. All right. Thank you for the question, Brent. All right, excuse me, tripping over my words. And let's move on to question number 2. Okay, so question number 2 is from Lance. So Lance asks this. He says, I've been following your company on Twitter. We're a single branch agency. We currently list all of our sales on Rightmove and Zoopla. Never used OTM. We just had our monthly fee increased by approximately £240 per month by Rightmove, pushing us over £2,000 a month. The worst bit is they just took it automatically. We are already in difficult times with increased bills and all sorts of other costs. I'm in lots of support groups on social media who also tweet about this very issue, but they are all talk and no action about ditching Rightmove. Booming has failed, so now what? Your site says you're a portal. How do you differ from Rightmove? Are you a portal? How do we know you won't shaft us too if we used you? Right. Okay. Well, quite a few questions there, Lance, and thank you for your honesty. Really appreciate that. And first of all, sorry to hear that you've been put in that position. I'm kind of in a difficult position on how to answer your question, Lance, because I don't want to be seen to be coming across as, knocking other players in the industry, shall we say. But what I will say, first of all, thank you for your honesty, and thank you for putting the question across with directness. In return, I'm also going to be direct with you, Lance, if I may, and with anybody else that's sort of watching this, because the thing that I'm seeing, I'm also seeing a lot of similar things to what you've highlighted here, Lance, which is there is a lot of talk on social media and not a lot of action in terms of shall we say, a movement to reduce the costs of being with these online portals. And I liken it to Stockholm syndrome. Okay, whether you agree with that analogy or not, it's entirely up to you. But I liken it to Stockholm syndrome, where agents are almost forced into this position where they've spent a lot of years building up the online portals. Okay, so if you think about how people used to search for property, let's wind the clock back sort of 10, 15 years or so. If you think about how people used to look for property, they used to go to the estate agent's office in the town or part of the city where they were thinking about moving to, and they'd go and register on the mailing list with all the estate agents, and they'd get talking to them. And then what advice they were given in the more recent years is, oh well, kind of, we don't recommend getting on our mailing list. What you should do is go to these major portals and register online for them to get property alerts. Okay, now I don't agree with that approach in estate agency. I'll be blunt and honest with you. I think that it really is missing an opportunity to. It's almost like batting people out of the door. I don't want to deal with you. That's what we're paying these portals to do, is to do that part of our job for us. And at £2,000 a month, you're kind of paying a full-time salary for somebody, aren't you, really? So I don't agree with that approach, first and foremost. But what happened is that the agents en masse, unfortunately, gave away a lot of their power and their stock, more importantly, to these online portals who, not everybody's done this, but over time, that price has increased to a point where there's a lot of agents that are unhappy about the monthly costs that they're spending on these online portals, particularly with Rightmove. And I say I'm not knocking the competition; I'm just explaining what's happened. Now, a lot of Rightmove's gravitas as a portal, if you like, was built up because agents were constantly referring people go to Rightmove, go to Rightmove, go to Rightmove. Okay, and now they're being rewarded. I'll use that in inverted commas. They're being rewarded by the fees constantly going up every single year. And if you wind the clock back just a short period for when COVID broke out originally and the market stopped, and I can't remember the exact details of what went on at that time now, but there seemed to be an issue where a lot of agents said the property market stopped and we have no income, or we're going to have very limited income. We don't know. We don't think it's right that we should be paying for a service when we can't actually do any business. Okay, and I think at the time there was got to make sure I get the details right, but I think ultimately the only leverage agents got with Rightmove reducing or postponing or cutting their fees or whatever it was that they did, I can't remember the exact details, was because Zoopla stepped into the market and said, okay, well, we'll just make it free for 3 months. And that put pressure on them to go, oh, okay, maybe we need to do something to help and support our clients, right? Which would seem the sensible thing to do in the market at that time. But now that's all gone, and the market's been amazing for the last 18 months really. Then I think agents got complacent, and because they've been making such good money, or they think they've been making so much good money because they've been selling a lot of stock, but the fees have been stuck in the pipeline because the time to move has extended significantly. So all their fees are locked in the pipeline, but their expenses are still going out every single month. And that's something that I think a lot of agents have took their eye off the ball. And now it's going to get even worse because inflation's at about 11%. So they're telling us today, if we're to believe what's told on the TV. And that's not going away anytime soon, I don't believe anyway. Okay, so you're right when you say this, Lance, that you've got a number of other bills that are going up, and now you've been stuck for what is effectively another, what's that, 10, 11%, 12% increase in your monthly costs on one particular portal. Now that's a huge amount of money, and you have to make that judgment call as to whether or not that is a valid expense for your business. And the only way you can do that, I don't think you can do it through a snap emotional judgment. Some do. If you want to drill down to the nitty gritty, this is what you need to do. And this is the reason why agents, I don't think, will take the action, because it involves them taking this step, which is to work out your return on investment on that particular cost. And that return on investment comes down to what leads have you got, okay, per month from those particular portals. And not only that, but what leads have actually led to deals being done. And that is the work that you have to do. And that takes quite a bit of work to track through. Okay, well, these leads came in May. I might have had 70 leads coming in May, but I only had one sale come from it. I'm not saying those are the statistics. I'm just saying, it's worth having a look at, right? So when you go through that exercise and you start to look at what is the return on the investment, it might not actually be what you think it is. Now, let's say, for example, let's say 30% of all your leads are actually leading to deals being done. I'm not saying that's accurate or not. You've got to do the maths. You've got to check it out, right? But then I would look at a website called SEMrush. Okay, that's SEM Rush, RUSH, all one word, SEMrush. And look at that website to verify the amount of hits that site is receiving, the portals that you're using, whether or not that is actually giving you tangible data that is accurate based on what you're being told by the company that you're subscribing to. Okay, because we've had a look at those statistics and they're not quite as accurate as perhaps others would like us to believe. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that. Go and do the research, have a look on the site, see what you think. And that will give you a better understanding of, is this investment that I'm making, because it is an investment in your business, right? Is that investment working to the way that you are led to believe is what you're being charged for? And I'm just going to leave it at that, because I can't tell you what to do one way or the other. I think the agents that have confidence in themselves, and I could be, you know, about to lynch myself with my own words, but I just want to be honest with you guys and any other agents that want to be honest with themselves about where they are in their business. You know, the you have to look at this from a perspective of the money that is being invested in that. Is it bringing you the return that you want ultimately? Okay, and then you have to make that choice. If you're confident in your abilities as an estate agent to go back to what I call traditional estate agency and not rely on the outside portals to do all this work for you, then I think you're going to score big. I think you're going to do really well. And actually, if you came off all portals altogether, it wouldn't actually affect the amount of business that you're doing. I'm just going to throw that out there. See what you think. I'm hearing that a lot actually through the same social media groups that people are pulling off some of these portals. They are returning to traditional agency. And as a consequence, their business is doing really well. But you've got to make the decision for you, right? But let me answer the second part to your question, Lance, which is really where you're going, which is, what about WiggyWam? What about, booming and on all these other operations? And the thing that bothered me a lot about so some of you might not remember this, but go back to early 2020 when the pandemic kind of happened. And then at the same time, there was a rush for what they were branded as the challenger portals, right? You may or may not remember that, but there was a rush for the challenger portals, and there was about 3 or 4 different players who were coming to the market around the same time, including WiggyWam, right? And we also had Booming coming in, who were the star player because they had the big bucks to spend. And I had some interesting, well, look, I'll be completely frank with you. We had some very interesting conversations in the background because we also had the opportunity to do the same. And nobody knows this really, but we had the same opportunity to go to the stock market, raise the big bucks, spend 8 to 10 million quid on marketing, list the company, and then parachute out. That was a strategy that was told to me by an investor that has done 3 IPOs and took a real serious interest in what we were doing. And I said, no, I don't think that's the right way to go about it, because it shifts the dynamic of the business away from looking after your valuable clients towards looking after your shareholder returns. Okay. And although I'm very much a capitalist, although I'm very much into investing, I also, hand on heart, believe you have to deliver a great level of customer experience and a great level of, you have to engender that customer loyalty, right? And I'm not knocking anything about what Booming did, but they came into the market with a hell of a lot more money and did what a lot of agents thought was necessary in order to succeed, which is to follow what, Rightmove and Zoopla and On the Market are doing, putting out these big adverts, national advertising campaigns on TV platforms where, unfortunately, the client or the target consumer can fast forward past a lot of these creative adverts. Okay, that's where TV has got to nowadays. And I don't think people have really thought that through. So I don't believe the big book strategy is going to work. It needs a grassroots movement, if I'm honest. And, if agents genuinely want real change and they want real viable options, they have to be open to exploring those new options. Okay. And the problem that any portal, any challenger, any platform like WiggyWam has got coming into the marketplace is that everybody's been fooled by this idea of social media giving everything away for free. Okay. And this is what I will say about that, because if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. All right. I'll say that again. If you're not paying for the product, you're the product. And what that means is, for example, Facebook captured the marketplace in terms of users, number of users going there, free to communicate, all of this technology, millions and millions of pounds worth of developers, technology, code that was written, all put together for a platform. And at the time when it first started, it was all free. And you're like, well, how does this work then? Because everything's free, right? And what we've come to realize now is that Facebook has 50,000 data points on each individual person, right? 50,000 data points. They know you better than you know yourself, right? And think about that. How easy a target are you when every activity that you do on that site, every click, Every like, every interaction is monitored and profiled and processed through a computer algorithm. I keep saying a logarithm, but apparently it's algorithm, right? You're processed against that, and they collect 50,000 data points against you. How easy are you to manipulate and sell to then if you've got that much data about that individual person? And that is what I think agents need to be very careful of, is that yes, you can go down the social media route for free, okay? But the irony is a lot of them have been paying thousands of pounds a month for stuff that isn't really giving them the true value, and I use the word value purposely, that they were expecting, okay? And the other thing that's going on in the background that most people don't realize is that their data has been landlocked and isolated by some of the CRM systems. I'm not saying all of them, but some of the CRM systems, any new portal or challenger that comes to the market that wants to access the estate agent's data, they're being asked to pay big fees just to integrate with them. Okay. So think about this from an agent. You're going out there, you're listing all of these properties, you're putting them into your CRM system. You should be able to share those with anybody that you like at your request, because it's your data, right? Or rather, it's your client's data that you have agreed that you want to work on their behalf to market their property for them and find the best buyer or tenant for that particular property, right? And you don't realize, and I know this because I've done the digging, I've researched, I've spoken to the CRM systems, and when we spoke to them at that time, they were wanting big fees to say, yeah, we'll plug you into our system, but it's going to cost you X. Okay. And what it does, because you might think this is not your problem, right? This is the portal's problem. This is the platform's problem to take on. But here's what it does: it ring fences and puts a moat around competition coming into the marketplace. So a lot of these CRM systems, and I think it's like the top 20% of CRM systems, which serve 80% of estate agents, it's the old 80-20 rule, right? They serve 80% of estate agents, and they're owned by Zoopla Property Group. Okay. Now, you can imagine how difficult that makes it as a conflict of interest, if you like, for any new platform coming to the marketplace who wants to plug into that data and get that data feed so that they can bring a revolutionary new product or system or different way of doing things to the marketplace. And then they're being told, well, yeah, you pay us a huge fee, which they're also not charging to the other platforms, by the way, or certainly not from what I could see from looking at the numbers. So automatically it puts a moat around their competition and prevents anybody else from coming into the marketplace. So you've got this monopoly, which agents are unhappy with. Agents are collecting all this data. Agents are then trying to share this data for the benefit of their clients. And what they don't realize is that behind the scenes, they're being penalized. And this is not a conspiracy. I've done the research, I've done the checking out. Feel free to go and ask your CRM system whether or not they would charge a new challenger. And if they say not, come and talk to me. Okay, because we'd be very interested to have that conversation as well. All right. And I appreciate I've probably gone on quite a bit, Lance, in terms of answering your question here. But the point I want to make is this. You've got a simple choice to make it your business. Nobody can tell you what to do or not to do with your business, right? You have to make a tough judgment call, because let's look at it this way. The recession is kind of here now, right? Okay. We're seeing more and more evidence of that in the press. Things aren't going to get easier any quicker, I don't think. So you have to make a choice that's right for you and your business. And the choice, as I see it, is to cancel one or more of your subscriptions to these portals, and then get on with it, or choose to stay with them and don't moan about it and just suck it up, as they say in the States. Not moan about it, just get on with it and embrace it. Okay. But there is a better choice that I see, and that would be to gather a group of like-minded people together and then come and talk to me, because we have got something that is coming to the market very, very soon. And I'm not going to tell you about it right now. It's not because I'm trying to hide anything, but we've got a launch offer that's going to be happening very, very soon. And I don't want to undermine what we're actually bringing to the marketplace by, sort of telling you about it here. But come and talk to me, because if you've got a bunch of agents that want to come to the marketplace, not only can we plug you into our system and our platform and show you the power of it, because it's unlike anything you've ever seen before, And I know every other platform tells you that, right? But I promise you, come and talk to me. Come and have a tour of what we're offering. No hard sell involved, but I'll show you exactly why it's different and exactly how it will work in your favor. And you asked a very interesting question. How do you know that we are not going to shaft you? Well, the answer is you don't. Okay, first and foremost, let's be honest, you don't. But here's what I realize is that this is an entirely different market to anything else I've ever experienced. It's a 300 billion a year market, which is the UK property market, right? But it's grinding to a halt and it's kind of on its knees and it needs change. That's the bit that we want to free up. Okay. Do we want financial reward? Of course we do, because that's the whole reason why we're in this thing, right? We want to have a financial reward, but it comes down to what's the level. And I've told you, I've already turned down the opportunity to go and do this, shall we say, the booming way. I've already turned that opportunity down. So money isn't the primary motivator. Making the change is actually the primary motivator. As corny or as twee as that might sound, that's the main motivator. Okay. And we're very protective over that. The money will come as a result of delivering that change and delivering that excellent service. But I have to say that the pricing models that I'm seeing in the marketplace at the moment are not what we would apply, and certainly not where we want to go. And we're even open to the opportunity of, if you said to me, we want to fix the price at this for the rest of our life, can we do that? I'd be like, sure, let's do it. All right. And that's not out of the desperation of needing a sale, but that's purely because the different model that we bring into the marketplace will absolutely make sure that that works. Okay, so it's a long answer to your question, Lance, and I hope it's given you, confidence in what we're about, and of course how to approach your situation, which is the most important point. But everybody has different motivations in business, and I can assure you that our motivations are very different and are unlike probably every other business that you've talked to as a supplier. Because of how we're geared and how we think and what we actually want to deliver. So, yeah, this is a long-term play for us. It's not something that we're just going to come into the market and disappear overnight. We're putting years of work behind the scenes that nobody's even heard of or knows about, other than those that are right at the core of WiggyWam. Okay, so this is not an overnight thing for us. We'll be around in 20, 30 years. Mark my words. I believe that fully. So happy to help you wherever we can, Lance, I think is the ultimate end to that conversation. So thanks for the question. Thanks for tuning in. And let's move on to question number 3. All right. Sorry, guys. It's getting warm. And I wasn't planning on going on this long, to be honest with you today, because, I'm feeling pretty tired. But we've got a couple more questions that I want to address. So let's move on. Question number 3 here comes in from Barry. Barry says, I keep seeing conflicting information in social media property groups about what's happening in the market and what's likely to happen in the future. Some are saying the market is grinding to a halt and prices will fall off a cliff. And others are saying the market is, and others are talking the market up, saying the good times are going to continue for a long time yet. I don't know what to do or how best to advise my clients who are thinking about selling at the moment. I feel like I will be misleading them if I don't share an element of caution, but the competition are acting like nothing's changed despite their sales slowing right down. All right. Okay, Barry. Well, thanks for the question. Pretty comprehensive there. And what you've highlighted again is something that I'm seeing as well in a lot of the different social media groups that I'm in contact with across the different platforms. And you're right, there is a lot of different opinions. There is a lot of gurus out there who are talking the market up and saying how it's just a blip, don't worry, things will be right back to where they were beforehand and all the rest of it. And look, I'll be honest, there's people far smarter than me and far smarter than these gurus who have been around for an awful long time, who have seen these wider economic patterns unfold over the course of many years, if not decades. And look, I'm not one to buy into media hype, and I'm not one to look at the headline news and all the rest of it. But what I do know is that people like, for example, Dan Pena, who's somebody that I follow and quite like, although I do use extreme caution, sort of suggesting that you go and check out his stuff unless you like the F word in every sentence, shall we put it like that. He's a very forthright talker, a huge amount of respect for Dan and everything that he does, but he's very, very blunt. Okay, so if you want to go and check his stuff out, please do, but don't say I didn't warn you. Now, to answer the question, he's very well connected with a lot of people who are very experienced business people. He's trained and mentored, tons of them across the world. He's also connected into the wider economic picture, the wider economic news, and he's also got scores of experience working with people who have traded the stock market and all the rest of it. And you have to open your eyes to the fact that there are big firms like, for example, Twitter, like, for example, Facebook, like, for example, Amazon, who are already laying off thousands of staff. Now, that tells you something, doesn't it? Okay. We've seen big high street name firms go to the wall. Okay. Now, the media might be painting over the cracks, if you like, of what's going on. But you have to understand that if these things are happening already, these big companies are monitoring their financial status of the business, the patterns that are happening, the monthly fluctuations, the annual fluctuations in their trading patterns. And if they're noticing a slowdown, then they want to be ahead of that curve, and they will cut deep, which means that they will get rid of the staff early, okay, so that they've got a better chance of riding out any recession. Now, if you're already seeing your income drying up, which a lot of agents are because they are seeing their sales slow down, and they know that their pipeline income is the best part of 3 to 4 months away from landing in their bank account, already that there's a lull. Okay, now we all want to be optimists, right? We all want to hope that there's going to be a bounce back and things are going to turn around really, really quickly, but it's not always the case. And we have to be realistic and say, well, if these guys are seeing this, and the bigger name players that we talked about, the stock market traders, are already have one foot out of the door, and they are predicting a pretty bad event, whatever that might be, stock market crash, which will lead to a real estate crash, which might lead to another 2007, 2008, then we have to be sensible and face the reality of that. And if that is the case, then we have to be honest with our clients, right? We have to say, look, the market is what it is. The market is falling. The market is going south, but we're going to do our very best for you. And that will require a change in how you continue to market and sell properties, because we've had a very good market for a lot of years. A lot of agents, I think, have probably forgotten how to go back to the traditional roots of grassroots selling property. And that, I think, is going to become more important. Now, I can't remember where I saw this, Barry, so forgive me, but somebody was talking about this, about how human beings are all interconnected, and how we're not actually that far removed from nature. And if you look at nature, when they know that things like an earthquake is coming, or things like a tsunami were happening, and I think this actually happened when that big tsunami hit Japan, and they monitored the wildlife, and the wildlife actually started moving away from that area some time before the event actually happened. Now, that's significant if you start thinking about it, that the wildlife knew they were in tune with something in nature that gave them advance warning that disaster was about to strike. And if you tune into your own gut feeling, because humans are connected to the same extent, even though we try to override it with our mental thought process, if you tune into it, you might also get a feeling that something isn't quite right and that something big may be about to happen. That's the feeling I get. I've been proven wrong before. I might be wrong this time, but I'm looking at the wider picture, and I'm listening to people that are smarter than me. And that's the only way that I think we can guide us, because we all want to be fortune tellers, and hindsight is 2020. We can all look back on things and go, oh, it was obvious that was going to happen. But to be fair to people like Charlie Lamdin, who's been sharing on social media some graphs by his good friend, who's a bit more tuned into the economic side of things, the data that they're mapping out and putting into social media right now are suggesting that we're in exactly the same place as we were just going into the 2007, 2008 recession, in terms of housing affordability, and inflation having an impact on the housing market. And I do believe that things are overvalued massively. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know realistically how people are affording to pay the prices that they are and getting the finance that they need to support the purchase of some of these properties. I just don't know how that's happening, but it is happening. Housing affordability, I think, is very low in terms of, it's difficult for people to afford to buy houses. and they're going to start to see their payments increasing now every single month because base rate's going up. So, you have to look at that wider economic picture. I do think things are going to change, and you need to be ahead of the game here, Barry, with what you're doing. And that comes down to giving your clients honest advice, because the difference being, if your competition are telling your client that everything's fine, there's nothing wrong with the market, we'll sell it overnight like we've been doing for the last 6 months, let them take the instructions, because the chances are they'll burn 3 to 6 months worth of marketing on that property, not sell it. And that's when you step in and say, well, we felt the market was different, we're prepared to do a good job for you, but this is how we're going to approach it. Okay, so that's how I'd approach that one, Barry. Hope that helps. Hope that gives you some insight. And yeah, just tune into your gut feel, see what you think, because it could well be that an upset in the economy is on the horizon, and it may not be that far away. All right. So thanks for the question, Barry. All right. Question number 4 comes in from Samantha. Hi there, Samantha. Thanks for tuning in. So Samantha asks us, she said, I've had a second viewing on a house that I really like, but something feels off about it. It's a 4-bedroom detached house in a good area and seems to be at a good price because the couple are divorcing. It's got underfloor heating and the owner is a builder, so it's been recently extended and seems to have been done quite well. I think it's the right one for me, but when I came to leave, I asked the seller if there was anything I needed to know, and she said no, but then said that the boiler needed to be topped up every week. I didn't think much about it at the time, but now I have a niggling feeling that something isn't right. Any ideas what might be wrong? Okay, well, great question there, Samantha. Thanks for that. Look, a couple of things that might be going on for you there, Samantha. First of all, it sounds like there's a leak in the heating system if the boiler is having to be topped up. It might be, I think, as you said, it's got a center. It's got. You did say it's got underfloor heating, so it might be that when the underfloor heating was laid, because the central heating pipes, are buried into the concrete when the floor is poured, particularly on the ground floor. It may well be that if something's gone wrong in the pour of the concrete, it may well be that the plastic pipes have become damaged, and therefore one of them might be leaking. That would explain the drop in pressure in the heating system and the need to top the boiler up every so often in order to maintain the balance in the system. Okay. Now, it may well be that you can get a report done on the underfloor heating system. I believe that they can even do things like, where they do thermal imaging cameras and that sort of thing, where they will scan the concrete floor, check to see if it's working, and if there's an area where, they can narrow it down where the leak might be. But the problem is with something like this, I'm not aware that they can do localized repairs. I could be wrong on that one, worth checking out. But with something like this, it may well be that they've got to take up at least part, if not most of the floor, to replace the underfloor heating pipes, and that can be quite expensive. Okay, so that would be one thing to investigate if you're thinking about going ahead. The other thing that you've touched upon, and I'm probably going to go a bit woo-woo now, so I apologize to those people that are watching this that aren't quite into this sort of thing, but if you're a little bit unsure, you might be sensitive to energy. Okay, and this is something I'm a big believer about, and a lot of people aren't, but just hear me out here. It's like, when you're around people sometimes, and you can feel whether somebody's got a good energy or a bad energy, or you can feel when somebody's really happy and when somebody's really sad, or when they're really angry. You can start to pick up on the energy and that emotion of that particular person, right? Well, sometimes that energy can be trapped within a property, for want of a better word. And you might be walking around and start, do you know what, this is actually really cold. And it's not the kind of cold that can be cured by turning up the heating. It actually feels like a cold property, or it feels like the energy's off. I've had several experiences of this where I've walked into properties and instantly I've just gone, do you know what? Yeah, not for me. Doesn't feel right at all. That would be something that I would tune into. So if you're not quite certain, maybe go and have another look. If you think you can get over the central heating issue, that seems to be the problem here, then it might well be worth going back to have another look and just tuning into yourself. Spend a moment or two walking around the property yourself. If you just ask the owners, look, do you mind if I just take a moment or two to walk around this myself? And then, go and have a look and stand in some of the rooms and see what you feel. Do you get a good feeling? Do you get a bad feeling? Okay, because sometimes if you're really sensitive to those energies, you might not get a comfortable feeling where you feel relaxed and certain and happy in that particular property. And again, I have worked with people who clear energies within properties. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm crazy here, but there are people that offer energy clearing services where they can clear negative energy within a property, or they can guide you as to whether or not that's the right property for you. And that's something that I've certainly investigated in the past. And I've certainly, I remember actually one property in Coventry we went to look at, and it was interesting because we were looking at it was a 2-bed flat, and I looked at it with a lady who brought a friend along, and I didn't realize her friend was into sort of Reiki and energy healing and all this, that, and the other. And we sort of walked round, and I said, "What did you think of the property?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think it'll be a really good rental, blah blah blah. It needs a bit of TLC, but it could be good." And I said, "Was there anything else?" It was a bit of a loaded question, but I just said, "Look, was there anything else that you found about the property that you were maybe a little bit unsure about?" And she said, "No, no, I don't think there was." I said, "Did you feel anything when you walked around the property?" Okay, because I did. I got a really negative feeling about this particular property. And a friend just smiled at me, and I smiled at her. I thought, okay, does she know something I don't? And then I found out she was this Reiki healer, right? And anyway, we had the conversation, and I said, I'll be honest, I felt a really negative energy. I personally wouldn't buy the property on that basis. And a friend said, yeah, I actually picked up on exactly the same. Like, there's some energy there that doesn't feel right. And we found out afterwards, when we fed back to the agent and said, look, this isn't for us, we found out that somebody, the previous owner, had actually died in the property. Now, I'm not saying, anything else other than that. Those are the facts of the matter, but it didn't feel right for us, and therefore we didn't buy. So that's something to explore, see what you think. And maybe it's something you'll go ahead with, Samantha, or maybe not. But if not, then I'm sure the right property will be coming to you very soon. So fingers crossed that you'll get something that you think will be of interest. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question, Samantha. And we're coming up to nearly an hour. I can't believe we've been on this for so long, but I have got one last question, guys. I want to go through it because I think it's fair to Benjamin, who's asked this question. So let's just rattle through it just so we can complete this thing for today. So Benjamin says, I'm thinking about buying a property at auction, but I'm scared and nervous about the process of bidding. Are there any tips that you can give me? So nice and short and sweet. Thank you for that, Benjamin. Great question. And this is something that I particularly like auctions, to be honest with you. I was very nervous about them, like yourself, Benjamin, when I first found out about them. But buying a property in auction can actually be a thrilling experience if you can overcome your nerves. And that's one of the biggest things that puts people off, because they think they're going to get really, really nervous. They think they're going to, bid over the odds for this particular property, and they're going to cause themselves a bit of an issue. So look, the tips I can give you is you need to, first of all, be prepared before you go into the auction room. Okay. So you need to have done your research about the property itself. What's it worth? When it's done up, because most of the properties at auction that are sold tend to be needing in some TLC. So what's it worth when it's done up? Are you going to live in it? Are you going to rent it out? Are you going to sell it on? And then check out the registration process for going to bid at that property auction. Okay. Sometimes you have to be registered in advance, and some auctioneers will request that you put a deposit on account or have verification from a solicitor that you've got your deposit on account with them, so that they know that you're a genuine bidder and you can pay for the property on the day, because that's going to be or at least pay for your deposit, should I say, on the day when the hammer falls. Okay. So you need to check out all of that work, and obviously make sure you've got your funding in place in order to buy the property. Now, if you're a cash buyer, that's not going to be a problem. But if you're reliant upon a mortgage, you might not meet the auction deadline to buy the property within. And some auctioneers will do 7 days, some will do 14, 28, or any variation, in terms of your time frame from when the auction finishes to when you've actually got to complete the purchase of the property. Okay, so that can be something that happens before you've actually got your finances in place to buy the property, and therefore you might need to look at taking on bridging finance, which can start to get very, very expensive very quickly. So there's a lot of work to do up front. You also need to make sure your solicitor has checked the legal pack before you go into the auction room and start bidding on a property. And because all this work has to be done up front, a lot of buyers tend to get put off, or they do the worst thing possible, which is, you know what, I'll figure it out as we go along. and they turn up and they haven't read the legal pack, or they've just skimmed through it and don't really know what they're doing. Then they bid away on the auction night, and then the hammer falls. And then 2 weeks later, they find out they shouldn't have bought the property, and now they're in a bit of a pickle because they can't pull out of the purchase. Okay, because it's very different to private treaty. So you've got to do your work up front. I would always want to be in the auction room myself rather than doing anything online. So I wouldn't want to do it through a computer screen. I actually want to be in the room. I don't want to do it over the telephone. I'd rather be in the room doing the bidding, because I want to know who my competition is and whether or not the auctioneer is bidding me off the wall or taking bids from thin air, or is he genuinely taking bids off another party who is in the room. Okay, so that's one of my biggest tips I can give you. I also would say to you, you need to arrive early, get in the room, get at the back of the room, okay, be visible to the auctioneer so that they can see who you are and where you are in the room. And then in terms of your bidding strategy, this is something I talk about a lot in Home Buyer Secrets, to be honest with you, but I never start bidding until right towards the very end of the bidding process. Okay, so the auctioneer will start off the auction and he'll say £100,000, 105, 110, 115, 120, and he'll build up his momentum, and they'll get to a point where all the momentum starts to peter out, and then one potential buyer thinks they've got the property. So let's say there are 135,000 or whatever the price might be, and then the auctioneer says going once, going twice. At that moment, I will then bid, okay? Because what I don't want to do is to be in a position where I'm part of the momentum that's driving the price up, okay? I only want to come in when all the momentum's gone and it's still below the price that I want to pay, my ceiling limit, if you like. And that's one of the most important things you need to have in place, Benjamin, is to have a ceiling price that you will go up to, but you will not exceed. And one of the things I've seen people do when they go into an auction room is to have a few pints of Guinness before they go into the auction room to calm the nerves. But of course, that ceiling price then goes out the window, right? So they end up paying way over the odds for a property because the alcohol's done all the talking for them. So definitely don't drink. But the point is, you've got to have that ceiling price in mind. And then when the bidding starts, you know that you're going to go up to that price and no further. Okay? Because once you've set yourself that discipline of that limit, stick to it. But just coming back to what I was saying about the bidding strategy, go right up to that point where the momentum's gone out the room, going once, going twice, then make your bid. And that will slow everything down. It will also knock the confidence of the other buyer in the room, which sounds like a horrible thing to say, but the point is that they will think they won the lot at that moment. They think they've won it. But when you step in, it's like, oh, now I've got to start that fight again. Do you know what I mean? So then you might bid 140, for example, and they then go, oh, do you know what? Do I want to pay over 140 because that was my ceiling price? Okay, I'll go 141. And your ceiling price is 145, right? Now, if they've gone 141, the auctioneer might come back to you for 142, and most buyers will go, yeah, I'll go 142. Then it's 143, 144, 145. Oh, now I can't bid because I'm over my ceiling price, right? So what you do is it goes back to the other guy for 141, and you go, no, I'm not bidding. And the auctioneer's like, okay, you're not bidding, you just came in at 140. Okay, so going back to the other guy, going once, going twice, guess what you're going to do? You're going to come in with another bid, right? And you keep doing that up to your ceiling price because it wears the other guy down, and it kind of lets them know that you're not going away. But once you've reached a ceiling price, if he then goes back in at 146, leave it well alone, all right? Because you could end up chasing it, and then you end up spending a lot of money. All right, so I just want to give you those little tips. There's a lot more that I talk about in Home Buyer Secrets, Benjamin. So if you're interested in knowing a bit more about auction strategy and how to really dominate the room, I'd recommend getting a copy of Home Buyer Secrets because it will show you exactly how to dominate the room. I call it the big dog strategy. To be honest with you, it's one that I kind of came up with because of trying to blow other competitive investors out of the room and sort of blow them out of the water so that I could take lots away from them that were otherwise going to sell for way more than I could afford. So well worth a read of that to get a bit more of an understanding about how the murky world of the auctions work. but hopefully that's given you some strategies on how to go forward. It can be nerve-wracking. You just got to have nerves of steel, and don't the pain only lasts for a few minutes, if I can put it that way. So, when that lock comes up on the screen, your heart will start beating fast. You'll be like, okay, just keep calming yourself down, deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. Go through the bidding process, know your ceiling limit, and then stop at that limit. Because I have been to auctions, and in fact, we actually did this at an auction once, where we were the auctioneers, and I'll never forget. My colleague was auctioning the property. I was keeping a record of the bids, right? And we had two couples that were bidding for this property. One was right at the front; they were a young couple, and the other couple was a developer and his young girlfriend at the back of the room. And the developer got to a point where he backed out. He said, "No more. I don't want to pay any more for this property." And the bid was with the young couple at the front of the room, right? And they had this big argument at the back of the room whilst the auction was going on. Like, they had this big bust up, and the developer's girlfriend walked off to the other side of the room, the other corner of the room, and started bidding herself on his behalf. And we just like looked at each other like, "Is this really going on?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's really going on." So all of a sudden, this bidding strategy started again, and they ended up paying, like, this developer paid like 15-20 grand, way more than he wanted to pay for this building. And unfortunately, the first time buyers didn't get the lot, but he had to pay for it because it was his lot on the night, right? So auctions can be a lot of fun. And what I would say to you, Benjamin, if you don't have to bid, if you don't have to go to your first auction in order to bid, it's well worthwhile just going to a couple of them to check them out. They can be a lot of good fun. Just make sure you don't wave to your friend across the room or anything like that. You know what I mean? Just have a little bit of fun, taking it all in, seeing what it's all about, getting a feel for the room, getting a feel for the auctioneer, what their style is, how they auction properties off. And again, now with all the restrictions being over, you can start to get into a room and see how that all unfolds. All right. So hopefully that helps, Benjamin. It's been a pleasure to sort of outline that with you, because I do like auction rooms. We've had some really good stuff out of auctions in the past. So hope that helps. And I've enjoyed answering that question for you, Benjamin. So thank you so much for that. And I think, to be honest with you, that brings us to the end of what has turned out to be a very long webinar. And I apologize that things have gone on a little bit, but I've really enjoyed this one this week. And it's been the end of, as I say, quite a trying couple of days for us personally. So it's great to be able to get on here and sort of share some stuff with you that I'm really excited about, which is all the property stuff. Hopefully we're giving you a ton of value. I'm going to encourage you to share these webinars, please, with your friends and family. Please help us get the word out on social media. There's a lot of people that are struggling right now with the uncertainty in the marketplace, with the trying to buy and sell, and they're hitting roadblocks. They don't know who to turn to for answers to their questions. I'm not saying we have all the answers to all the questions, but I will say we've probably got 80% of the answers, which I think is good enough, and we can get other specialists in to answer the rest. So please, I'm going to encourage you, if you've got value from anything that we've said here today, please share this with your friends and family. Please help us get the word out on social media. We're really excited to be able to offer this value to people. And I want to be able to bring more people on the journey with us to really transform and revolutionize the housing market. So any questions that you've got for us, get your friends and family to send them in. You can send them in as well. Happy to help at WiggyWam.co.uk. That's happy to help at WiggyWam.co.uk. You can go to our website, again, which is WiggyWam.co.uk, or you can find us on Twitter, which is WiggyWam_UK. And we'd just be delighted to hear from you with any questions, comments, feedback that you might have. And look forward to welcoming you on a webinar very, very soon in the future. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again next week. All right. You take care. Bye-bye.